Welcome back, everybody, to Tales from the Grid Square. This is the third episode of Tales from the Grid Square. I hope you enjoyed the first two. We're going to pick right up where we left off with Afghanistan Skinwalker Part 2, Dad's first-hand account. We were in Logar Province in the mountains of Pule Alam, not sure on the spelling. It was 2013. We were embedded with an A&A battalion doing operations to clear small towns of insurgents. We parked for the night in an old unfinished but what looked to be some housing area. I had the night shift watch on the M2 and I had the AN PAS 13 thermal sight. It was about 0300. I saw a heat signature of a person at the end of the road, which was only about 150 meters away. I kept my eye on this dude. He was walking straight towards our small assembly area. He started moving to my left. He was still 80 meters away from us. He turned into a small alley, but I was elevated high enough in the truck I could still see him. He stopped for what seemed like an hour, but it was only 5 minutes. Looking around and moving his hands in an odd manner, like twitching around. He started walking out of the alley, and he got down on all fours and moved about 20 meters that way before he turned into an enormous cat. The dude turned into a cat, straight up. Yeah, that would be a little strange, seeing that at 3 o'clock in the morning while you're on post. At this time, he was about 50 meters or less from where we were bedded down. I started throwing expended 50 cal rounds and yelling at my dudes to wake up. My buddy Cooter woke up and saw this thing coming towards them, grabbed his rifle and started yelling. It came as close as 15 feet from the guy sleeping on the ground. After Cooter started yelling, this thing ran off and hid in one of the buildings that was in the area. The very next night, Cooter was on guard, and around the same time it happened again, exactly the same way I explained it. Except for this time it got closer, and everyone else got a good look at it. It was black. Quite large. It was just a big, huge black cat. It was like the size of a tiger, maybe a little smaller. We could hear it breathing super weird. I thought for sure I was going crazy. I was trying to explain it away to myself that I didn't really see that happen. But after my buddy saw the same thing, I knew what I saw. And that's the end of that. Weird. Alright, next story. A test of faith at FOB Iskandaria. This goes back to 2006. Our first deployment to Iraq at FOB Iskandaria. Our schedule was 1 week tower guard, 1 week QRF, and 1 week patrols from our patrol base in Jerf as-Sakr. This particular event happened when I was on tower guard with a buddy of mine. Everyone knows that everything under the sun comes up on guard. This time it was Christianity and faith. Yeah, when you're on post with somebody, your conversations could range from talking about the Boston Celtics to talking about the expansion of the universe and dark matter. Because you've got all the time in the world and you're just sitting there on post. So you're going to discuss every manner of thing that you can, not only to stay awake, but so that way you and your buddy have something to talk about so you're not bored while you're waiting. Because when you're on post, like, if something happens, it's probably like maybe one small thing. You know, you might have one thing happen and then 60 seconds of panic and then like 5 hours of sheer boredom, you know? Anyway, he's a devout Christian, as was his father. We delved pretty deep into the faith and the Bible and what his father had taught it. Several hours into our conversation, I had to take a piss. I climbed down out of the tower and headed over to the porta-john. I want to add, because I know people will say it held sway over my psyche, I had at no point in time was thinking about anything other than taking a piss. Also, there was a streetlight shining over the area in question. Just for clarification. Anyway, as I stepped out of the pisser and started walking towards the tower, I heard a noise from my right to left. I paused, thinking, what was that? What was that noise? As I took another few steps forward, I looked up to the sky, wondering if maybe it was sprinkling or wind or whatever. This time as I walked towards the tower, I watched the ground. I followed the scuttling sound from my right to left with my eyes. It sounded like claws scuttling the ground. Yet all I could do was follow the sound. It sounded like claws running across the asphalt like 5 feet away from me. I lost it. Hair on the back of my neck, shortness of breath, all that. I rushed up the ladder and told my buddy, as calm as he always was, he says, "Yeah, bro, that happens when you get deep into the Bible." He said his dad had stuff like that happen to him. He said things happen. They get active whenever you get deep into the Bible. They try to scare you away from it. The first time it crossed my path, I half-assed noticed. Next story. Well, before we get on to the next story. Yeah, I've had situations where I didn't actually see anything, but hearing stuff. It's possible a guy was having auditory hallucinations. Tough to say, but, you know, I have for sure had that hair on the back of my neck stand up, shortness of breath stuff in like the wee small hours of the morning when you're on post. And it's worse when you're by yourself. If you got a buddy there, it's like, okay, we got somebody there, that's up. But if you're by yourself, it's even worse. So anyway, next story. The Russian. So I was deployed to Afghanistan for a year. My job had me traveling all over the countries, so I could never really settle in for too long. We stayed a few weeks at Bagram at one of the many camps around the airfield. As soon as I settled into this room, I was uneasy. It looked as if whoever previously lived there had left in a hurry with a few personal belongings scattered throughout the room. There was a negative vibe in general. Yeah, bad vibes in the chew, bro. I just shrugged it off as post-mission jitters and figured that person was sent home early for something. That first night, I couldn't help but feel something was watching me. And that's not a feeling you like when you're all alone in a strange room inside of a war zone. I finally forced myself to sleep and began having a strange dream over and over again. In the dream, I walked into a dark room dimly lit with candles laid out in a circle surrounding this podium. On the podium sat a ledger book with a quill and ink bottle. I walked up to the podium and began writing something. It was then that I felt a large hand press down on my right shoulder, as if it was a person trying to wake me up. I woke up from that nightmare so quickly I almost hit my head on the unoccupied bunk above me. I looked over, and a large man that was wearing a Soviet Russian uniform and AK was standing next to my bed. Yeah, creepy. Probably a ghost from back when the Russians were fighting the Mujahideen. There's a lot of stories about that kind of stuff, like people hearing Russian soldiers talking because there's like their ghosts are still down there from back in the 80s when they were fighting the Mujahideen. That's some real stories. You hear a lot of people talk about that. His head was obscured from view due to the bunk just above me, and he looked as if he was trying to pull me out of my bed. I reactively swung at him, thinking I was about to go hand to hand with an AK-wielding man in my bedroom, only to throw myself onto the floor in a gasping panic. He had disappeared into nothing. I immediately thought I was going crazy, and I went back to bed. The next few days, I would see things thrown across my room, hear voices speaking at night, Russian and Afghan voices, and continue having the same dream over and over again. The worst part was that no one believed me until my LT saw a Febreze bottle fly across my room. So it literally took somebody actually seeing it before they believed him. Can't say I'm surprised, because anytime I hear spooky stories like this, I am immediately skeptical at first. But if I saw a Febreze bottle fly across the room that nobody touched, I'd be like, yeah, okay. Alright, we'll get you a new room. Alright, next story. Just a set of footprints. I was a cop near Ramadi. I was standing post from midnight till 0800. The worst shift out there. Yeah, that's probably one of the worst shifts out there for sure. We're in position, one facing westward. From the edge of our wire, it's an open desert for a couple of clicks until there's an abandoned grouping of buildings and a cemetery. Around 03, I let my buddy on post snooze off a bit, and I'm scanning out sector with my NVGs from right to left. As I scan back across to my right, there's suddenly a dude standing about 300 meters to my direct front. I don't know where he came from because it's kilometers of open terrain for him to just pop up out of nowhere. I wake up my buddy and he sees the guy and tags him with his PEC 15, which is a laser. It's like a PEC 15 is like a small device that you can attach to the end of your rifle, and it's got lasers on it. PEC 15 should only have, I think, one laser on it and a light. I can't remember exactly. PEC 16 is like the upgraded version, and you have an infrared light, a visible IR, a visible light, or visible laser. You have a visible laser, an infrared laser, a visible light, and an infrared light. I can't remember if PEC 15 had infrared or not. I think it might have just been all visible, I believe. Or maybe it was only not visible and no visible. I can't remember. Anyway, he sees the guy and he tags him with his PEC 15 so we can give an area to the other post and the COC's G-Boss, which is like a gigantic camera on a tower that they have in theater, in CENTCOM, all over the place, and they've had it for a while. And like the G-Boss is so powerful, you can like zoom in on someone's license plate from like kilometers away. And when he's talking about tagging it, what he's talking about is just shining a laser on that individual so that way people know, hey, look at this object that I'm lasing. That's what it means when they're talking about tag. As he's doing that, I pick up the PAS 13 Deltas, which is a thermal scope, thermal optic, rather, to see what else is happening around him. I don't pick him up at all. I end up looking through my MVGs with one eye and the thermal with the other. We both see the dude on canvas, not on thermal. We shine one of those bright-ass Surefire 10,000 lumen lights and see nothing, but still we see him with NVGs. We call up COC to report it all to the Sergeant of the Guard, and they're getting the same thing. Sergeant of the Guard gathers up a fire team and patrols out to investigate. They got eyes on under NVGs. As soon as they come out of a draw about 50 meters from the dude, he's gone all of a sudden. We lost the guy on our NVGs as the team came out of the draw. The SOG comes back saying that he found a set of footprints. Just stationary, like no trails leading to them or from the spot. It was as if the dude had just walked up and stopped, but no prints leading to or from the area, just two solitary prints. If it were just me who saw it, well, I'd chalk it up to just sleep deprivation, but 8 other people saw it. So I'm guessing it was a fucking ghost or the most ninja insurgent to walk the earth. Oh, yeah. Yeah, if more than one person saw it, for sure, yeah. I would say odds are that you're probably not losing your mind. Spooky. Anyway, the next story is called Shadows in the Bush. Alright, this one takes place in Africa. I deployed in Africa. My base had gotten attacked about a few weeks prior, so we were working every day, so I was exhausted. One night, I was in my tower sitting down, and I felt a human hand grab my shoulder and shake. I freak out and turn around. We were in blackout, mind you. See nothing. I look through my MVGs and thermals, and I can't find anything. For more context, I worked nights the whole time. The place was naturally creepy at night. Hyenas, bugs, snakes, all of that. It was much more than an aggressive shake. It was also hot and humid at night, but when this happened, I felt the temperature get noticeably cold. I'm not superstitious, but that did feel like something not ordinary. Additionally, my buddy had a nearly identical experience in the same tower on a separate night. For reference, this tower is about 20 or so feet off the ground. The only way up is a ladder. If anyone did climb up there, you would have heard them on the aluminum ladder. Some of my buddies also had some weird experiences out there. One guy thought he saw someone climbing the fence, but it could only be seen through the thermals, which was pretty odd because only one guy saw it without thermals. A shadow figure of sorts. The real creepy one, though, was a friend who said he saw someone walk out of the wood line and look at him, like same as before. This shadowy figure was just staring him down. He felt it was a security risk. He and a few others draw weapons. But before anyone said anything, the figure disappears into thin air. Dude, why does this stuff keep happening? This is crazy. My goodness. Alright. The last story of this section of the book, and then we're moving to some stuff that's happening stateside. Alright. Black Triangle over Iraq. I did 16 months in Iraq with the Army back in 06 and 07. My company was split between several cops along MSR Tampa. One night, my buddy and I were pulling guard duty out of a bunker on top of a hill that was our outpost was built around. We were sitting there talking and doing our scans of the perimeter and surrounding area. We had MVGs and the thermal scope from a CLU, which stands for Command Launch Unit. It's the same thing that you use to launch Javelin missiles from. And it's a very powerful optic. It's 9 power, so you can see pretty far distance and it's thermal. It wasn't uncommon to see Blackhawks flying by and the occasional AC-130, and we knew other planes were flying much higher regularly. As I was scanning with my night vision goggles, something in the air caught my eye, and I looked up to see a huge dark triangular-shaped craft moving slowly towards and then over our base. I alerted my buddy, who also saw it through MVGs. He grabbed the thermals, and this thing gave off no discernible heat signature. It was a dark area moving above us, blocking out stars when we looked with our naked eyes. No lights, no sound. It never stopped. Just a slow and steady pace. It was impossible to tell how high it was since depth perception is tricky with MVGs. Judging its size was hard too, but it was bigger than anything you usually see flying. I've looked up flying black triangles online, and there are stories out there of things like this. It was not a B-2 bomber. Way sharper angles to the triangle, and not an F-117 either, as it was just a 3-sided triangle. Yeah, bro, that was a freaking alien spaceship. I'm just kidding, I don't know, I wasn't there. But that is pretty creepy. I mean, you know, you're already in a stressful situation in the Middle East, and you're seeing weird things like that. Yeah. Tough to tell if it was real or not. I don't know. All right. The next section is called Stateside, which means that the next stories following this section are going to be places that are in the United States. So I'm excited to get to this, but that's going to wait. We're going to have to wait until the next episode for that one. I appreciate you guys stopping by. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you enjoyed it, feel free to check out episode 1 and 2. They're already on my YouTube. I'll put links in the description for those. And yeah, we'll see you in the next episode of Tales from the Grid Square. See ya.